Thank you for tuning in to the Happy Hearts podcast with your host, Becca. Rate and subscribe as we empower you to live with love. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Happy Hearts House podcast. And if you haven't been here before, hello. I'm here today with Lunar Moods. You can catch her on all social media under that name. I will drop her link tree in the description for today's episode. Welcome, Luna, also known as Casey. How are you today?
Everyone. I am. This week has been a week.
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of people just like, it's been so stressful, and why? Yeah, it's kind of a full. I could write like 2 pages of just like descriptions of me. So I'm a Reiki master. I actually just my anniversary just came up in November. That it's been a full entire year.
Wow.
Which is crazy. I'm a psychic medium and intuitive as well, and I learned that in 2015, and it's kind of where my journey started, was just everything just thrown at me. A tiny little 14-year-old child just being like, hey, this is the world, and this is like, you have special gifts.
Yeah, I can imagine that was intimidating at the time.
Yeah, but it's definitely like made me like grow into like a whole different person, and it's amazing. And especially like with me finding out in 2017 that I had D.I.D. was even like another curveball.
Yeah. And that brings us on to today's topic. We're going to be discussing D.I.D, dissociative identity disorder, and dissociative disorder, and what that's about, how it affects us, how it affects you, and yeah, that's today's podcast. But before we start, Casey, I sometimes like to just like get centered, get connected with our breath.
Yeah, totally.
So if you want to do that with me, I'd be grateful.
Yes.
Right. So I just invite you to just close your eyes and take a few deep breaths in and out at your leisure. I like to rest my hands on my heart. And just continue to take some gentle breaths in and out. And just envision ourselves being surrounded by a loving white light. Imagine how that feels to us. Does it feel warm, embracing? And then we like to take that white light and just imagine it seeping in through every pore and making its way to our heart. filling us up with love for each other, for everything that surrounds us, filling us with gratitude for the lessons from today, and for being in this moment right here and now. Just take a few minutes to breathe. When we feel ready, we can wiggle our toes, wiggle our nose, and gently open our eyes and return to ourselves.
Oh, I love doing that, just setting the tone for everything. That's beautiful.
Yeah, just getting us all chilled and relaxed, because we're just here to have fun and practice, sharing information, and just getting connected with each other, really.
Yeah.
I just like to do that just to make us feel comfortable, and I hope that achieves that for you and everybody here listening. So firstly, I just wanted to cover what I understand of what dissociative disorder is. And from my knowledge, it's like an umbrella term for a group of conditions where a person might feel disconnected from themselves, from the world around them, and that some of the symptoms are loss of sensations in the body, can be seizures in some people, it can be memory loss, and it can be identity issues. We have Casey here today, as she's already let us know. She has one of the conditions, dissociative identity disorder. So Casey, if you want to tell us, what does dissociative identity disorder, is such a tongue twister, what does D.I.D. mean for you personally?
So at the beginning, it was definitely a curse. It was definitely like a boundary that I had to get around or figure out. I didn't really know any of like my headmates or my like alternative beings, as they're called, like as short alters. And I really didn't know how to communicate that to them, but they tried communicating to me, and it was easier for them to come in contact with me. So it was definitely, it was a barrier at the time, but now I see it more as like a superpower. I see it more as like, if I am having a really rough day, I can actually go and like ask one of my headmates, like, hey, can you kind of like substitute for a while, because I can't handle this anymore.
Yeah.
And just kind of give me a break. But it's not like a 100% like cut off. You can still kind of hear what's going on in the head, and it's not really a break like everybody would be like, oh, a vacation, you get to go inside your head. No, it's not like that. But yeah, it's just, it takes a lot of time and patience, and just like meditation and spirituality, a lot of research and a lot of just kind of analyzing. It does help with a therapist, and like for us, it's kind of been tight with money. So we can't really go to a therapist, and we've kind of self-taught ourselves and self-diagnosed. But most people that do have DID have to self-diagnose, and they figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not just willy-nilly on just like, oh, I have DID and I run with it. It's more of the 7, like you deny yourself every single day. Like you have some times where nobody's talking and you're like, oh my gosh, do I really have DID? And then you go back to the notion of just being like, am I faking everything? Am I actually like causing myself more harm because I'm thinking all this like like causing my mental state to just plummet? But it's just trying to reassure yourself, being like, hey, you do have this disorder, and I even don't like calling it a disorder. It's
Yeah,
more,
same.
it's more of a different outlook to
Yes.
see everything. And that's kind of how I see it. I know a lot of people see it in a different light, and I completely understand. It just depends on what like bringing up you were in, or what kind of trauma you were in. So
Yeah. I think it's definitely like any other um ability, it's personal to that person. You know, it's like they can have an umbrella term to it, but each individual's journey and each individual's perspective is going to be totally different. I don't personally have D.I.D, but as many people that might listen to this podcast, and as you know yourself, I have a daughter. She's going to be 10 soon. Her name is Eva. And she's very comfortable with me sharing her story, because she wants people to have awareness too, and understanding and acceptance for disability. Just because it makes her feel accepted, I suppose, and everybody wants that. You know, it's not individual to Eva. Everybody wants to be accepted in some way. So Eva has D.I.D. She was diagnosed with D.I.D only around 15 weeks ago, so like 4 months ago. And it derived from trauma experiences that she went through, and stressful times in her little short life. And the way it's been for her, it's definitely been a journey, like a little bit like you. She didn't know her alters at first. She would just talk to me about having voices that spoke to her. They had a shadow in her head, but she couldn't see their faces clearly. And at first she only spoke about 2. Now there's 7. You know.
yeah, it wraps up really fast when you
Mm-hmm.
start actually feeling comfortable with yourself, because for the longest time I only thought it was the people that were like present, because you do
Mm-hmm.
have dormant alters as well. So altogether for us it's like 57,
Mm-hmm.
which is like bonkers to think of. And I'm like, okay, I just want to worry about the ones that are like interacting with me.
Yeah.
Like at that age, having 7 is just wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at first, she actually had amnesia, dissociative amnesia, because she doesn't remember any of them developing before this year. But I specifically remember her telling me about the shadow people in her head and the voices in her head a couple of years before that. Which would make sense because the trauma that happened to her, the big trauma that led to the changes in Eva, and her having to develop a coping mechanism, is happened between the ages of 4 and 7. on and off. And yeah, that is when I started to recognize changes in her and that she needed support and help. What I am realizing is that it's very much different, the help and support that you get in the UK as it is in the USA.
Yeah, it's definitely widely different. I've been learning like what the UK does, and you guys get a lot more support than we do. Like it like I don't know how to say this,
I
but
think it's because a lot of our medical services are free.
yeah, where everything you have to pay an arm and a leg basically here in the States.
And
And
I think when it comes to support, in a sense, like for me, when all these things are coming at you that's new and they're having detrimental effects on the way that you live your life, the way that you build relationships, the way that you're developing as a person, the way that you're functioning in the world, why should you not be getting that support? You know, why are you having to pay hundreds of pounds for your children to be able to get the support that they need to thrive in life? It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving, getting to their full potential, and the potential is limitless. But the only thing that's limiting it is society itself by not giving the support where it's needed.
yes.
And I suppose in a way, excuse me, I suppose in a way, I'm really appreciative that we do have the NHS, because they, with it being free, the National Health Service is what it's called. It's a free, well, some elements of it is free. So like if I was to access mental health services, it would only be, it'd be very limited time. So like for counselling, talk therapy, or cognitive behavioural therapy, or even psychotherapy, you would only get it in a 12-week period. So you would do the 12-week block, and then if you felt like you needed more services after that, you would have to reapply, and then you would be put on a waiting list. And the waiting list is around 18 months. And then within that time frame, you just sat waiting, basically. And then you would get another 12-week block when it comes available. But for children, it doesn't seem, I'm finding that it's not limited like that. So Ava at the minute, she's very new to therapy, and it's a very specific type of therapy. It's not just counselling. To try and access the trauma that the D.I.D is protecting her from, basically. What I'm finding though is that it's bringing up a lot more behavioural issues than she had before. The more that we try and uncover, and the more we try to dig deep with her, even though she's getting comfortable and she's showing her alters to us, it's becoming troublesome for her, and it's hard as a parent to be able to watch her in pain. And so I can't even imagine what it's like for you firsthand, having to like try and deal with, you know, the shadow work, and the trauma and stuff, what it derives from, but not even having all the information there because your brain is protecting you from that information.
Yeah, exactly. Like, now that I think about it too, that with me speaking about it publicly on like social platforms and all that kind of stuff, I feel like I'm reliving everything that I had to go through in 2017. Is that I'm uncovering so many things, but now it's at a point now that a lot more people know and understand, and there's a lot more like information out in the world now about like dissociative disorders and D.I.D. And there's more like systems coming out publicly that is just like, oh my gosh, just so welcoming. But now I have to go back into myself and kind of talk to all these people and be like, okay, we can tell this person and they'll feel comfortable, but we now have the other side of what social media, you have all the trolls, you have all these people that you have to kind of worry about, kind of. Like right now I'm starting to dissociate because I'm talking about that kind of stuff, and I've noticed more and more that I am getting more memory gaps, like more I can't remember stuff, where in the past it was kind of like low key, it was kind of okay, but now with me bringing up all these memories, I'm starting to lose all of them. Like I went to a trip in Germany in 2015 and I'm starting to lose all those memories because now my alters feel more comfortable, and they were very fascinated to go on that trip as well, that they shared those memories with me now. Yeah. So there's like more alters that share the same memories even though they have different.
Yes, so it's not just trauma that they sometimes take over in. It's not just stressful situations.
Yeah, it can be sometimes if there's an alter that absolutely loves a certain kind of food, they can kick the host out and eat that food, and that host would not even know that they had food. They would be like, oh, I'm hungry again, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen that with Eva. She has an alter that is particularly a hungry part of her, like she calls them a team. So a part of her team, there is an alter that gets really hungry. So Eva could avert, but then there could be a particular smell lingering around and it will bring out that alter, and that alter then wants to eat because
it can like go into a windstorm of just like, oh, I hear a sound, I'm gonna go into a traumatic crazy event, cover for me. And then you probably get kicked out, and it's like getting kicked in the knee, and then you fall to the ground and you don't realize what's going on because you just got so dissociated and just so disoriented as well. That's just like, what is happening?
Yeah. And I definitely feel like people like you and Eva being able to share your experiences and your stories and your the information that you're learning along the way on your journeys is so important for other young people and adolescents out there that might be going through similar kind of traits, or I don't really like to call them symptoms, but might be going through these kind of changes in themselves and thinking that they're kind of going crazy when actually they're not. It's their body's way of coping. So I'm interested in knowing if you are comfortable in talking about it, Luna. What were the first signs that you had to realize there was something different going on?
The first sign was like dramatic and bold and very scary at first to learn all that kind of stuff. I was with a couple friends, and we actually felt really comfortable together that we kind of had a party, kind of just like, this is Las Vegas, and what happens, the apartment stays in the apartment type situation. And we did have some plant medicines and with a mix of alcohol. And that kind of caused everything to kind of come to the front. We had way too much to drink. And Rostifer, my gatekeeper, came out, and he's like, "This isn't Lunar anymore. This is Casey. Or not Casey anymore." And they're like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "This is not who you think I am," basically. And I guess that whole entire night, 4 altars came out, and I came back, and we were just hammered. Like puking everywhere, like very TMI, but but it's crazy to like think that's how it all started, was just one night, and they felt comfortable enough also to influences to just say hi to these friends. And then I'm like, no, it's I started going into self-denial, and I started getting notes around my house just randomly with sticky notes. And I'm like, what is this? And I thought it was a spirit because I am a psychic medium as well, and I thought it was just me.
And you had no memory of it, so...
Yeah, absolutely no memory of it, and I would dissociate, but not as much as I do now. Because you're just masking your own self. That's like the crazy part about like how the brain works, is because why a lot of people don't get diagnosed until like 18 to 30s is around the ages that they get diagnosed. And there's a good reason for it, because you mask yourself so well and you think you're just one personality, but then you find out that you have other ones. Like I come to find out that night I had an alter that I don't really speak about, but her name's Vicky, and she's a cheerleader college girl, and she loves her drinks. She loves her booze. And that's how I found her out, but she's probably dormant. I haven't talked to her for a while. And I really don't want to. You have some of those alters that it's like, I don't want to mess with you, and they don't want to mess with me, basically.
Yeah. I know that I haven't met all of Eva's alters yet. She's written them down on a piece of paper.
And journals are like the best, your best friend. Like I have maybe 10 to 11 journals just for like each kind of person who wants to doodle or write, and everybody has their like own handwriting too, and it's so weird to like go back into like 2017 and be like, oh, this makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's great that you do that though, because it's like it's documenting your day, so any gaps in memory that you do have, you can always go back and be like, oh, I did that, okay, that's fine, you know, kind of thing.
And
but
I'm absolutely loving like Discord because of that. People are feeling more like alters are starting to feel more comfortable talking on my Discord. And at least like I always tell them, make sure to put your name in there, because yes, it helps the person viewing it, but also too it helps us being like, oh, who was kind of in that mental state, who was in that mental state of mind, basically. And it's kind of nice to track whose mood, like it was yesterday, I do believe, that we had like a full-on panic attack. And I'm like, this is not my energy. I know this is not my panic attacks because it felt way different. And I was trying to search, and I was actually having Rostifer, my gatekeeper, to kind of help me search who that was, but we never found out who was having a panic attack for the rest of the day. And that affected all of us. And that's another downfall to having D.I.D. Everybody sees like Hollywood, like some people say that, oh, they're monsters that have D.I.D. or they're manipulative or that kind of stuff. But
yeah, in the media, the people with dissociative identity disorder, as in history, it was called multiple personality disorder, and also has been known as split personality disorder. And the media and movies have made it out to be dangerous and evil, and that they have to be on medication to be able to function as part of society. And that's 100% not true.
Definitely.
Like, yes, there are altars that will do anything to protect their vessel, but that is the way that they have learned to use the fight or flight that we all have. You know, it's just that it comes out in a different identity.
Yeah. So a good way of putting it as well. So if you have an abuser that was at your childhood, like in your childhood, and that monster, air quotes, would be like just trying to what they think protecting the body is to put the body back into that mental state of being scared and being on high alert at all times, because that abuser at that time was basically doing the same thing that the altar is doing. So when people are like, oh, is your monster going to come out?
It's just as scary for Eva as it is for me.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, when I was going through this stuff with my system, I was to the point where I was so scared. I didn't know who would come out. So it would cause more dissociation, because I would be fighting that whole entire, like, part of myself, and that person would want to come in and want to control the body because their, like, energy is bigger and better than mine. So that's why me fighting, it's basically me fighting a giant, and you're just a tiny person trying to fight this energy, but it's going to take over eventually. And kind of going through that by yourself is really detrimental, really.
Yeah. It makes me think as well, like, I know that through the ages from 13 to 21 is a very important stage in developing self-identity, in you know, what we class as adolescent years. How do you think it has affected you to have just D.I.D in these really important developmental years? Do you feel like it's made a difference to how you've had to develop yourself, and how it's made you feel about who you are? You know, things like that.
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. Like, for us, it's kind of hard because we associate ourselves to years. We can't think of ages, because we were born in 1999, and it lines us perfectly up to like when it was 2005, we were either 5 or 6, because we were born in June, and it lines us up perfectly. So I can't think of age like that way. I think of the years. And I have a really hard time with probably like the trauma and the dissociation to age. When people are like, oh, what age do you think that person is? I would not be able to tell them.
Yes.
I would be like, I have no idea. Maybe they're in their 20s or their 30s. That's like basically all I can give to that point, because it's so hard, and we associate age to what happened, like, traumatically. And we just track what year it is, basically.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's made a difference to how you feel about yourself, like as you have grown up from teenager to adult, do you feel like it's had an effect on you finding your sense of self?
Like right now I'm dissociating and I'm just trying to figure out, because I can hear Rostfer kind of in the background and he's
I know it's quite a difficult question.
It is, yeah, and I don't know if I've ever had that question like asked for us. Um it just, you have to take it page by page, and if you can see yourself as like a storybook, like there's some systems out there that in the inner world for them, it's not even the same year. It's not like 2021. It's like maybe 8 years ahead, because when you put yourself in that state of mind as a child, you would always want to look towards the future. The future is always brighter type situation. So they like set an amount inside their inner world, and it's not the same. Like the technology could be different. For us, it's more of like a medieval, weird, futuristic world, basically. So time definitely works different for a lot of systems, and being able to like pinpoint, like, oh, how old are you? Sometimes all of us have to be like, are you talking about the body or are you talking about all of us in general?
Yeah. I think for Eva, you know, it's definitely like all she has said that all her alters are 19. So I do think that it is definitely linked to how she is trying to identify and place herself in this world. Like, because she also has autism. So she's never really made connections with her peer group as such. Gaining more understanding, and being able to get a feel for, what she might be going through at the moment. And with Happy Hearts House as well, building that our community together, that has definitely brought us closer together, because she's been able to discuss with me what she would like to see, and how she would like the community to support her and other kids like her, the kids that feel like they're lost, or they don't fit in anywhere, or they're just that little bit too different, the kids that and young people that may be a little bit confused and might be needing support, but they don't have that kind of support network, and that's what we're building with Happy Hearts House. And we're so proud to have you, Luna, and your system on board with us every step of the way. You've been such a support network for Eva, and I know that you would be such a role model to other young people that are going to come into the community too.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see so many people talk about their out in wow, what words. It's upbringing and mental disorders and all that stuff. I really don't like talking about those. There needs to be a certain kind of word that we all absolutely know that is another word for mental disorder, basically.
I mean, I like to call it other abilities, but
yeah, exactly. I have a whole entire thing on Discord about superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to talk more about you can actually control time and space when you put yourself in a perspective of another character. Can you take yourself, and that I kind of want to teach people that are singles. A lot of the D.I.D people call systems multiple, and then people that don't have DID singles. And I think it is just really cute of another sorry about that.
Okay. It's okay.
So just little tiny keywords that makes everybody feel included.
Yes.
Basically. And I would like to talk about like how singles can take that information. Like we have 12 littles, which is little kids, little alters. And if you can go search for your basically your inner world and find your inner child, then you can work with that inner child. You can feed them. You can start gaining more mutual respect. You can name your shadows. Yes. Like I just mentioned this on another like kind of podcast Zoom talk where I'm like, have you even met your shadow self and have you given them a name? Like start off with like a group meeting and kind of just introduce yourself. And that's how you kind of build up the building blocks to help your inner self and kind of help with your mental and kind of create characters. But with people that have DID, they don't have that choice. Those people are already there. Most of them have already given themselves names. You didn't even name them. And they're like, hey, I'm Margaret. I don't like that name. Well, you have to deal with it now.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And I just want everybody to be included. And I just want more people to feel more comfortable with like not even just mental health problems, more people that have autism or Tourette's or anybody that has actual like physical attributes, because basically mental health is kind of like that, where Tourette's and autism, Down syndrome, but it's in your mind, and just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yes.
And I want to teach people that it's okay. We're going into the age of Aquarius where our emotions are actually like supposed to help. Are feeling more drawn to spirituality. They're feeling more drawn to so many different worlds.
And to connect into themselves, right back to their hearts. And that is one thing that Happy Hearts House is working for, is to help the younger generation to get a connection with themselves and to get comfortable with speaking out and having a voice, especially when it comes to emotions and how they're coping and developing mentally and emotionally. And we also want to connect them to the right information that's going to help them to develop and grow into being the powerful beings that they are, and to show them that the possibilities are endless. They're not stuck. They're not held back by other abilities. They're not held back by issues with themselves mentally. All they need to do is take these strategies and techniques and lessons that we can help them to learn and use them to their advantage. And not only will that help them with their relationships with themselves, but it's also going to help them with their relationships with other people and with the world around them, and the opportunities that come their way as they grow, really.
Yeah, start them off at a young age and making sure that they feel safe and feel comfortable. Because if a lot of people at that age had more of a stable childhood, then a lot of us people would not have DID. We would feel a lot more comfortable and we would feel more accepted towards everyone. And I know school systems in the States can be very rude. There's bullying, and now there's like cyberbullying, which is even worse because like the kids are in their homes getting bombarded like all these text messages or social media outlooks that they can't run away from it. It's not like back in the past where there was no cell phone, no social platforms where they couldn't take it home with them.
Yeah, they're not escaping it. And this is another thing that we at Happy Hearts House are going to be focusing on, is building resilience against things like that, bullying and cyberbullying and really strong energies that like to overpower us. And we're going to make it so that these are not taboo subjects to be talking about, and they're going to be able to openly express themselves about how these things make them think and feel, and act, you know. And hopefully, well, we hope that Happy Hearts House will be a support network for these young people that don't necessarily have a support network. And me myself, growing up and going through anxiety disorder and depression, I know that it's helped me to come into a community where I'm accepted for being who I am, like completely and fully. Like, I've never been able to express the amount of love that I have for people so openly and so easily, and it just be accepted like it's normal, you know. And everybody should have that opportunity. Everybody should have the opportunity to be able to express themselves in a safe, secure environment where they feel they are heard, they're included, they're accepted, and they're shown that the only thing that matters is how they see themselves. And that's the biggest thing. D.I.D, autism, depression, anxiety, any of it, it's not going to stop you from being you and me from being me. You know, it's not going to hold us back anymore. Exactly. Because we've accepted those sides of ourselves as part of ourselves. And I think that that's where schools and media has let our society down, is by not showing us the right way to deal with these emotions. Different is good. Yes. On that note, I'm going to thank you, Luna, for being here today with us and having this beautiful discussion. I think that we could go on forever, and we probably will have a second episode of this because it's been really interesting. And as things develop and Happy Hearts House grows and you grow and Eva grows and the community, you know, keeps getting vaster, there's going to be so much more to discuss for us. But I'm so grateful to have you on and for you telling your story and being so open and honest with us. I couldn't even express any more gratitude.
Oh, same goes to you. Like everything, what you are doing. Like there was a day this week that I was starting to get jealous, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, why am I getting jealous? I'm connected to you, and I'm connected to this whole thing, but like, it's just the energy is so pure, and I'm like, why am I getting jealous over this? This is basically just a team effort.
It's definitely a team.
Yeah.
It takes, I'm not even using that saying anymore. The saying is it takes a village. Yes. I'm saying it takes a community. Because we're so spread out, but yet we're still able to come together and make something beautiful. And I'm grateful for your energy and everybody else who are helping in building Happy Hearts House, because we all have the same outlook, and that is to support the next generation to grow. And I appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here today. I hope that you enjoyed yourself, because I've had a really nice time with you.
This is so much fun, and it's just practice. And I started my own podcast and talking about these kind of subjects, and I would even invite you to, Becca, and we could share a part 2 maybe.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. Yeah, I'd be up for that. Thank you. I'm Becca, and I've been your host today on Happy Hearts Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you next time. Until then, live with love.